Oh, man.
Hi, everybody. Royce Eddings here, your host of Royce in the House, the live podcast. And my co-host or additional host is Lou Mars.
Howdy.
Award-winning drummer. Country, back and forth, zigzagging back and forth in his band. He's having van life. And, okay, Lou, where are you now? Last time we talked, you were in New Mexico.
Yes, actually, you missed one. Since we've last talked, I was already been in Arizona as well. I was up in the White Mountains, Sholo, and
I did.
Hey, there he is. It's my man.
Dad,
yeah. No, you got to say hi to Dad.
Yeah,
no, I was up in Sholo. I call Sholo and especially Pine Top the South Lake Tahoe of Arizona. You know, if you haven't been there, people, it's not desert. It's just the opposite. It's mountains. It's tree. Matter of fact, it was snowing while I was up there. Just this last week. Yeah, check out the weather this last week. This is the last week of my travels. Florida, humid and wet. There's a surprise. Georgia, windy as can be. Tornadoes dropped down while I was in Louisiana. 3 of them. Texas, hotter than beep. And then Arizona. New Mexico, I'm on top of a mountain. Almost blew me off. Arizona, I go into a snowstorm. Oh, yeah, New Mexico. Beautiful sight. Place called The Box. I was on the very top. Found a road. I'm not a big New Mexico fan. Don't get mad, New Mexico people, but this was stunning. I'm going to say New Mexico.
Oh, wow.
That was cool. Yeah.
That's
and
great.
I went all the stuff. Yeah, all the alien stuff. I dig that stuff. I go out there. I'm a big egghead on that. I love it.
You know, I used to live in Roswell.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. Well, when I was a baby, my dad was in the Air Force.
Okay.
He was in Air Force stationed out there for a while.
Hey, thing I got to say about Texas,
show, guys, because we're going to try to solve some of rock's greatest mysteries, you know, and we're going to talk about how some of rock's biggest bands got their names, and you know, there's differing versions of some of these stories, you know. So we're going to try to solve some of rock's greatest labeling mysteries, many of which have long been steeped in urban legend, misinformation, and half-truths. So let's have some fun tonight. And I want to say to the chat, and hey, Adam D, how you doing, Adam? I want to say to the chat that my wife is going to keep track. I'm asking everybody in the chat, which isn't a lot of people right now, to tell me if you were in a band, what instrument would you play, and what would you call the band? What instrument would you play? What would you call the band? And my wife's keeping track of everybody that answers that question. And we're going to have a little drawing later, maybe even after the show. She's going to put all the names in a hat. And we're going to send out a gift card, you know, for whoever wins the drawing.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's what we're going to do. And let's see. So we're going to go. I think I'm going to start here with one of my favorites. And this is a favorite story. And I have to admit, I've read multiple versions of it. Okay. And the story is Led Zeppelin and how Led Zeppelin got their name. Ooh. Now, right after the breakup of the Yardbirds, where both Jimmy Page and Jeff Beck had been playing with the Yardbirds at the time. Prior to that, it was Eric Clapton. But the Yardbirds broke up. Beck was already recording his Beck's Bolero, famous album of his. And Jimmy Page was asked to lay down some tracks with him. They were buddies. And so he did. When that was over, Page put, I won't go into the whole Led Zeppelin history, you know, which I've done before and we'll be doing again. But so they got the band together, you know, Page tapped the bass player. He tapped, John Paul Jones, the bass player, who was also a studio musician and keyboardist, bassist, and just a great musician, considered one of the best musicians in all of England at the time. And then they were recommended to go look up Robert Plant. They went and found me. Robert Plant said, "Hey, I've got a bass drummer. You've got to hear this guy." So anyway, so the original Led Zeppelin lineup was all formed, okay? And they were in the studio practicing, and the Who just got back from tour. And so John Entwistle, the bass player, and Keith Moon, the drummer, heard that their were in a recording studio practicing and stuff. So they thought they'd go down to see how the lads were doing. So they went down there and they were listening, and it was the original Led Zeppelin lineup, but they didn't have a name yet. And they were sitting there, and either Keith Moon or John Entwistle. The story changes when you read it, different places. They were going back and forth. Well, this is going to go over like a Led Zeppelin. Oh, this is going to go over like a Lead Balloon. And they were, lighthearted banter. Now, when you read some of the stories, they make it sound like they were being very insulting. But the story that I liked, that I read, it was lighthearted banter among friends. So the Yardbirds had some unfinished tour dates in like Scandinavia and stuff. And so they branded themselves at that time the New Yardbirds, and the original Led Zeppelin lineup went on tour to fulfill Yardbirds tour dates as the New Yardbirds. Well, as soon as they came back, they rebranded themselves. They remembered the conversation with the guys, and they rebranded themselves Led Zeppelin. So that was how Led Zeppelin got its name. Now, if anybody wants to toss anything in, into that mix or variations of what they've heard, because I've read several variations. I really like the one that I just told, but there are other variations out there.
But that's what I heard. That's what I heard too. And to me, it sounds like something Keith Moon would say.
Keith Moon, Keith Moon all the way. Yeah, Keith Moon was a snarky dude, and that's completely what Keith Moon would say. Yeah. And I believe the term was they would go over like a lead balloon was the exact word.
A lead balloon. They went back and forth between those two.
He was asked, what do you think? Oh, I think they're going to go over like a lead balloon. That's so Keith Moon. That's how he got his job in the band. He said, I'm better than that drummer, and challenged the drummer, the original drummer. Yeah, that's great.
Okay, we've got more people joining, including my my grandson London just came in. This is the first time I've seen London in the chat. Maybe he heard we were having a giveaway. Okay, now's a good time to repeat that because the folks are coming in. All right, so what I want to say to everybody in the chat is this: we're going to have a drawing, and what we're asking everybody is, if you were going to be in a band, just write it out. Just what would you call the band, and what instrument would you play? Let us know what instrument you would play, what you'd call your band. My wife's writing down everybody that gives an answer. She's going to put it in a hat, and after the show, she's going to draw the winner, and we're going to send out a gift card to the winner. So what band, what would you name your band, and what instrument would you play? That's all we need to know, and Betty's keeping track of who's saying what. So hi, Linda and Gloria and London. Ellie, hi, Ellie. Oh, that's London's girlfriend, Ellie. I didn't know at first. I forgot her last name. Okay, awesome. This is just great. Okay, so let's move on. So I told you what I found out about Led Zeppelin. Does anybody have anything they want to say at the moment about how a band got its name? I mean, we've got a lot to cover here. Don't get me wrong. If not, I'll move on to Tesla, the band.
I've got one. If it's not already on your list, I don't want to steal from it.
No. Please take one off my list. Take 3 or 4 or 5 off my list.
One of my favorites is Buddy Holly.
Buddy Holly. Okay.
I love Buddy Holly and the Crickets because supposedly the way they got the name, and you'll probably verify this. This is great because you've done the homework before.
Okay.
But apparently on the first, great timing. But apparently on the first album, while they were recording, they didn't realize that a cricket was making a chirp just like that in the background. So it wasn't until they were back in mixing when you're coming down to either do your overdubs and or back then mastering because you didn't have a whole lot of opportunity. And they heard the cricket, and they're like, they didn't want to have to do it all over again. So they simply decided to call it Buddy Holly and the Crickets.
That is
supposedly how they got their name.
That's an awesome story, man. And since you said that, I have to say this now. The Beatles got their name because they were huge Buddy Holly fans, okay? And Buddy Holly and the Crickets. And so they picked another kind of an insect and named themselves the Beatles. They were big Buddy Holly fans. And it all came about because of the Crickets. And that's how the Beatles got their name.
Why did they misspell Beatles? I mean, I get it. Beat. I get that. So was there anything behind that?
I didn't find anything.
Yeah, me neither. I've never got the reason why.
I do remember reading something about it, but it was a long time ago. I can't remember. I don't know if it was a copyright thing. Did somebody already have that name?
I don't know. I read the book "The Love You Make" by the Beatles, and that was almost everything but that wasn't mentioned. So I've never been able. Anybody knows that out there? They should chirp in. And
Chirp
give us
in.
the answer. Couldn't help it. Hey, you guys hit me with the cricket. I had to come back.
Well, one of the things that amazed me is Tesla got its name from Nikolai Tesla, kind of the father of modern electricity. And and my daughter, when she heard that, she just, she's kind of a fan of his too. Yeah, he's like inventor, electrical engineer. He had so many patents that he submitted to get approved. I think it was someplace like Yugoslavia. He submitted all these patents, and every single one of them disappeared. One of them had to do with, time travel. One of them had to do with a kind of a ray gun weapon he created that could, practically wipe out other countries. But I mean, all this stuff to do with electricity was all invented by Tesla. He died broke, and all those patents would just disappeared once he submitted them. And
wasn't there some kind of a beef between him and Edison that created? There was like a click.
Maybe so. Yeah.
Supposedly there was some, and so even like the light bulb, he should have got credit for, but because of this whole thing.
Oh, that's right. I did read that. That's correct. Yeah.
What I think is really cool about the band Tesla, today we all know the name Tesla from the car and all that stuff, but at the time, not a whole lot of people knew about Tesla, and this band comes out with that name, so that was pretty damn creative.
And I didn't either. I may have heard about him once a long time ago and forgot about it or something like that. But not until recent times have people really started to understand all this,
True.
But the fun thing, here I've got this AC/DC is what I was going to bring up next.
Oh,
and they were having a hard time coming up with the name. And Malcolm and Angus Young's sister Margaret, they have her to thank for that. She looked on the bottom of it was either a vacuum cleaner or a sewing machine that's in dispute, and saw that it was AC/DC, alternating current and direct current, speaking of Tesla. And so she suggested that to them, and they went with it off the bottom of a vacuum cleaner.
There was a lot of misunderstanding with that name when it first came out. I remember that. Do you remember that too?
Oh,
so a lot of people thought it meant a sexual situation.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you guys remember this probably. Do you remember the Prism Belts? They had these black belts that were very popular. They had black over the top, and then cut through, you'd have like Led Zeppelin. You'd see Prism paper behind it. So you had Queen. You had if you wore an AC/DC or a Queen belt at the very beginning, sometimes people give you a rough time because of just those two band names were misunderstood. What they actually represented.
Right.
That's just the truth. The way it was back then.
I'm going to say this again because some more people have joined us. My wife's keeping track, and I'm asking everybody, if you were gonna name a band, your own band, what would you call your band, and what instrument would you have liked to play in your own band? And I'm just asking you that. And my wife, everybody that answers that question, that's going to go into a hat, and there's going to be a drawing, and you're going to be sent a gift card. So anyway.
I noticed Gloria's asking, how did Pantera get their name? It looks like Bill Kay may have answered part of it, but Pantera originally was called Gemini, and then they changed that from Gemini to Eternity, and then somebody pointed out to Vinnie Paul one day this Pantera sports car, and he fell in love with the Pantera sports car, and coincidentally enough, they lived in a city called Pantego. So they just decided, well, let's just, plus the Black Panther. That was actually their logo at the very beginning. When they first came to sell us Pantera, big Black Panther was on all their flyers.
Okay.
So that's how that came around.
Yeah, I heard two different versions. I heard the same thing you just said about the name of the city. And I thought I read that they changed the name of that city later to Pantera, I'm sorry.
No.
And then also Pantego. That, and you would know this and know whether this is true or not, but I had read that Dime had a Pantera car.
No, he had a Camaro.
Okay,
he had a Camaro.
Okay. Camaro.
That's what I had.
That's a long ways away from a Pantera.
Well, his last vehicle was a Cadillac Escalade. He even wrote a little song about it. What's it called? Something about Cadillac. Can't remember the name of the song now, but he actually wrote a song about it.
Right on.
Okay, we're honored. We have another podcaster, Michael Nolan. The Bottom Line just dropped in to say hi and watch some of the show. We always appreciate that.
Had to be done.
I've been watching a lot of his too, and they're really good. So anyway, we'll move on. So that's how Pantera, and I was definitely going to defer to Dan on Pantera all the way. You know, I was waiting for somebody to ask me that before we got much farther. Anyway, so well, let's see. We could talk about Black Sabbath. Black Sabbath, originally known as the
I know this one.
Oh, I'm going to let you tell it. Go ahead, Dan.
Well, you know, before they had a name, I think they were in the recording studio, and when it came out of the recording studio, had been discussing come up with a name for the band.
Right.
When they walked outside, there was a theater across the street playing the horror movie Black Sabbath. And,
that's right. Yeah.
And they thought that was such a cool name, so they just stuck with it.
Starring Boris Karloff.
Yeah.
I love Boris Karloff. Long Cheney, Boris Karloff. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Dan
awesome.
was showing a bunch of movies not too long ago, and these old horror movies like that. They were a lot of fun. Okay, let's see. All right. Well, let's see. We've got the Foo Fighters, and the Foo Fighters was a term that was used by the Allied aircraft in like World War II, kind of an unidentified flying object that they saw, and they would refer to that UFO as a Foo Fighter.
Mm-hmm. A Foo.
Yeah. A Foo Fighter. Yeah.
Is that comparable to like a gremlin? Same. I think it was something similar to that.
I think you're actually right. I don't think he's too far off with that. There was a weird name. The Foo was the part of it. It was something like that would come after a stick on you type thing. You know, it was a weird term.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's more to it, like between
the lines. There's more to it. Okay.
Yeah. It's a bizarre name. I remember when it came out, I'm like, what? Foo Fighters.
Well, we could Creedence Clearwater Revival. The band took three elements from, firstly, Tom Fogerty's friend, Creedence Newball. That's where the Creedence came from. And then they added an extra E to it. And then Clearwater, secondly, Clearwater from a TV commercial of Olympia beer. Clearwater. And finally, Revival, which spoke to the four members' renewed commitment to their band. So they took three different elements and combined them to make Creedence Clearwater Revival. Or as most of us like to say, CCNR, you know. Let's see, Guns N' Roses.
You know, it's kind of funny that some bands come up with names and there's really not a really good story behind it. It's just something just something you thought of. Like the Who, you know, for the Who's, you know, talk about Keith Moon earlier. Right. When they were trying to come up with their name, Peter Townsend was the one trying to come up with the name, and he was trying to think of something odd, something weird. Like I think one of his ideas was the Hair, you know. Another one was the No Ones, and then somebody suggested Who. He goes, "That's it." You know.
I think I heard that. Yeah, heard that and read it. You know, Michael Nolan just in the bottom line just said it's a Wahat, W-A-H-A-T, Wahat. The French called them, and the American pilots adopted the name. Okay, it must be going back to Foo Fighters.
I just saw that. Yeah, I finally got something so I can watch the chat with you guys.
Awesome band name. And Black Oak, Arkansas. Yeah, I don't know how they got their name.
Oh,
I'm assuming they were from Arkansas.
Yeah.
Well, that's part of it. Yeah. I was telling Royce this earlier. I was in a band in the early '90s that was going back when they had the Hilton circuit. We were called Davenport, and everybody thought we were from Iowa. And the truth was, we were in a recording studio, and in the last minute, we needed a name because we were going out before we even had a name, kind of like Led Zeppelin was doing. And we looked at
kind of like the Rolling Stones.
Well, we were sitting on a couch, and the leader of the band lifted the cushion on the couch, and it said it was a Davenport couch. That's how we got our name. So there's all kinds of weird stuff. You never know. I mean, like Shakespeare, what's in the name?
You know, even the band I used to manage called Aska, you know, originally they're from Panama, and I think the father was involved in the U.S. government somehow, and they were born and raised in Panama until they were late teens. Then they moved to Texas. But when he was in high school down there in Panama, he formed a band, and it was originally called Legion. And of course, down in the Panama Canal Zone, you got the Atlantic side and you've got the Pacific side because the canal's right down the middle.
Right.
Well, like every high school, you got a rival high school in the neighborhood, and his high school was on the Atlantic side, and the rival school was on the Pacific side, and so they decided to change the name, just to show, I guess, his school spirit or whatever. He said, Atlantic side kicks ass, ASKA, ASKA. So there's been ASKA ever since, And one cool thing about that band too, I don't know if I ever mentioned, but since they're from Panama, that they were just becoming popular down there when we ousted Noriega out of power.
Oh yeah.
And he was held up in I believe it was some type of a mission for a while.
I think so, yeah.
And the U.S. military surrounded it, and they got loudspeakers and was blasting rock and roll music into the compound, and hoping he'd give up. Well,
that wasn't the one they made Heartbreak Ridge about, was it? Heartbreak Ridge with Clint Eastwood, the movie with the rock and roller of Ayatollah of rock and roller.
I'm not sure.
Okay,
but that went on for several days. That went on for several days. Then blasted that rock and roll music into the compound. And so they were using a variety of music, and some of the music they played was Aska's demo tape. Then Noriega, it doesn't say much about their music. Noriega gave up. Hell, I can't take it.
Right. No, I'm sorry. I was completely wrong about what I was saying. It was our first military involvement anywhere after Vietnam. We stayed away from any military involvement for a long time. And there was a little one, Central America or something like that, where some students were being held hostage and stuff.
And we Grenada.
Oh, yeah, Grenada. Yeah. Thank you. That I confused that with Panama. Grenada, they made that movie Heartbreak Ridge with Clint Eastwood. Yeah, and that was a fun show.
Well, after that Panama incident with Noriega and them using Aska's demo tape, well, that brought their attention to the Department of Defense, and back then when they performed, they had the American flag in the background. They actually wore camo while they were performing.
Oh, okay.
And the Department of Defense said, we like that look. So they signed a contract with them, and they've been on, 8 world tours through the Department of Defense. They've been everywhere. They've been in Saudi Arabia. They've been in Bahrain. They've been in Iraq. Many times down in the Mediterranean, South Pacific. They've been to 34 countries performing, and that really boosted the band quite a bit.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's a big show. Well, let's see. We've got Guns N' Roses, Tracy Guns of LA Guns, joined with Axl Rose, and they formed Guns N' Roses. And of course, that lineup didn't last that long, and then that all changed down the road. I mean, I think at the time Axl was probably with Izzy Stradlin, but not with Slash or Duff or any of them. I think they all came later after that kind of fell apart, But anyway, so that was Guns N' Roses. Started out with Tracy Guns of LA Guns and Axl Rose. Pantera. Yeah, that's funny. I mean, I've got a note here. It says named after guitarist Dimebag Darrell's car, the Tommaso Pantera. that couldn't be more off,
Yeah.
There
are a few bands out there. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to bring up next. You were talking about, picking a name off an album cover or something, and the Rolling Stones. There were two separate bands. One of them was Keith Richards and Mick Jagger and their band, and I'm for some reason I'm not remembering the name of the other guy at the moment, but he had his own band. But they were going to go on tour as one band, but the BBC called the guy up and they said, hey, we want you to do a live concert for the BBC. Well, of course, that was going to include Mick and Keith Richards, too. And he knew they were getting ready to ask him for a name, and he didn't have a name for the band they were getting ready to start. And he looked down, and there was a Muddy Waters album cover, and he started reading the names of the songs on it, and he came across Rolling Stone, and he goes, the name of the band is Rolling Stones.
Oh, shoot, I thought it came from Dylan. Rolling Stone. I thought it was from that. You know, what gets me are the bands that have a name that sounds like an individual. And if you weren't really up to a snuff, you would have assumed, like, let's say Alice Cooper. There really wasn't an Alice Cooper in that band. He renamed, or even more so, Pink Floyd. Who's Pink, right? And back then, you know, you try to fake it like, oh yeah, I like that Pink Floyd guy, you know. You didn't know your stuff.
And I think in the late 70s, bands started getting lazy when it came to their names. Boston, Kansas.
Yeah. Well, how about this one? Toto. In the 80s, they told the press they took that from the dog in The Wizard of Oz, Toto.
Yeah.
They got their
name. Well, let's talk about that for a second. That's because a formula was born, right? A formula. It's just like there's periods of times where you can tell the name. It's like the Beatles. How many bands had the this, the that? Then the 70s came. Led Zeppelin was one of those bands that kind of changed that, and all of a sudden, in the 70s, you even had a band, Asia. They named themselves that because they were put together. So the guy even admits, who put the band together, I made it Asia so that you start at the front of the albums when you walk in a record store, and they'd be the first record at the front. That's what he said. Yeah, he named them completely for business.
I guess ZZ Top never thought about
the Yellow Pages.
Yeah, ZZ just had to be good.
Go ahead.
And damn right they were. That Tush album was smoking bad. You didn't like the Tush album, something's wrong with you. Come on, that was a great album.
Well, you know, the Ramones. Paul McCartney used to book rooms under the name Paul Ramone. And so the Ramones
That's a good one.
And named their band the Ramones, you know.
That is awesome.
Fake
name. That's creative. That's creative, I think. I don't know. For a punk band too. You're thinking they're not creative. That was creative.
And who can forget Ugly Kid Joe, a parody of the LA glam band Pretty Boy Floyd. That's came up with the name.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the Billy Idol one's pretty interesting because remember, what was his original band? X? Is that right? I think his original band was X. He was in a punk band, and his punk band was making fun of pop music. And the character they were making fun of that they created was Billy Idol, you know, making fun of pop. And he ends up taking it, and what's weird is he became what he was making fun of in the beginning. He became a pop star as Billy Idol. And it was just bizarre. That's how he was born. That name didn't exist.
Well, you know, that's funny. The Van Halen band, the Van Halen band, they started out as Mammoth.
I didn't know that.
And they found out there was another band named Mammoth, so they just took their last name and called it Van Halen.
Oh, that's kind of a Davy Jones story, right? The Monkees, Davy Jones, and David Bowie.
Right.
That was his name, David Jones, and so he changed it to Bowie, like Bowie knife. That was interesting. Right. We would have never had a David Bowie if it wasn't for the Monkees.
If it wasn't for the Monkees, yeah,
that's true. David Jones had just put that big hit out too.
Right. Yeah, so AC/DC, I thought AC/DC was hilarious, you know, up the bottom of the vacuum cleaner, you know, AC/DC.
I did not know that.
You know, yeah.
I knew it was about power, but I didn't know that's exactly specifically how they got it. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, I love that one.
Michael Nolan has mentioned Journey. Now, I did read something about Journey. They were trying to come up with the name. Actually, I saw the band Journey before Steve Perry joined back in In fact, they were with Leonard Skinner that night. And,
right.
They didn't have Steve Perry, and it was mainly instrumental. There wasn't much vocals at all that night. Well, evidently there was, from the very beginning of the band, there was a lot of changes, and they went a lot of ups and downs. And I think it was a roadie. They said, you know, there's been quite a journey, and the name stuck. So I think it was actually.
Really?
I think it was a roadie that came up with the name Journey.
I used to watch those guys practice in Hayward, California when I was a kid.
Really?
Journey before they had. Get this, Steve Perry wasn't with the band. It was right before they were coming out with him. But Journey and Montrose rehearsed in the same living room in the same house on Campus Drive. And I would sit there and watch them on the couch. Yeah,
Journey
I watched both of them. We're practicing the same house on Campus Drive. And then when they were just sitting there barely getting by. They were going through the stuff. So I'd go watch them because I had a friend who lived in the back, and I watched those guys rehearse. Yeah, it was something else. And when Steve came in, I mean, everything, they played Winterland, and of course, Montrose, speaking of names, named after Ronnie, but the rest was history, man. Once they started, they played out, both those bands were just boom, rocket. Those first albums of both those guys were just insanely good. Every song is good.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's another one where if you don't like them, you've got to at least appreciate the musicianship going on, that the way, swinging a bat on every song and pretty much either hitting the fence or getting it over on every single song.
Right.
It's not easy, especially in today's MP3 world. You just knock them out one at a time. You don't really have to release an album even, It's true.
Right.
It's true.
Yeah. I know.
Of course, the cheater back then was two good songs. You had an album.
Well, Montrose is a great band, and I mean, I really like the Red Rocker. Sammy Hagar.
Oh yeah,
Sammy.
Yeah.
Total Hayward man, Hayward boy. Yeah.
I've never seen him live. When I saw Van Halen, they'd reunited with David Lee Roth here at the Paso Robles Fairgrounds, 10 miles up the road, as you know. And but I like Sammy Hagar. I've seen several of his concerts. Everything Red. The Red Rocker on TV, and they're always fun. He puts on a good show.
Sammy, okay, all right. So we got to do a quickie then. Sammy and Van Halen. Van Halen, and I love Sammy Hagar. I know Sammy Hagar, but Van Halen was David Lee Roth, as far as I was concerned. I saw the Van Halen twice with David Lee Roth, and Hagar is amazing. As I thought, Montrose was never the same once Hagar left.
Right.
It was over. But Hagar's solo stuff was pretty darn good.
Exactly.
So if we had a band right now, it'd be something Pussy. Faster Pussycat. That's probably how they got their name. See, people, you thought I was being dirty. It was a kitty. You're supposed to,
I saw Van Halen in downtown Dallas. I think it was in 91 or 92. They were scheduled to do a concert here in Dallas, but for some reason it got canceled. And Eddie Van Halen comes on stage. He goes, "We're going to come back and we're going to give you a free show." So out of nowhere, they made an announcement. Van Halen is setting up in West End, Dallas, and it just everybody went crazy. There was thousands of people down there. I had at the time my son was 3 years old, and I had him on my shoulders, and we were just like crushed. People they had set porta potties out. People would stand on top of the porta potties, and the porta potties were collapsing from the weight. People were in trees, on fire escapes. They were everywhere, but they did the whole show.
Wow. Whenever I'm in here, Monroe, the vinyl unicorn, this is her unicorn outfit. She stands outside the door barking and squealing till I let her in. She's got a bed on top of my desk.
I see in the chat.
That's where she likes to spend her time, is on top of my desk. So I had to go let her in.
I see in the chat one of the guys. He's right. Yeah, it was Generation X for Billy Idol. Remember, I said it was X, but Generation X is correct. Thank you, brother.
Okay.
For correcting me on that. That's right.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Nolan thinks that Sammy should have stayed with Montrose. David Lee Roth should have stayed with Van Halen. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more.
I wouldn't have any problem with that.
I even like the solo Sammy. Solo Sammy was good.
Solo Sammy, I saw him solo too. Yeah.
I was expecting this from Michael. I was watching his show the other day, and he was going over top guitarists. He's doing a series on that. And I asked him in the comments. I said, "Well, what did you think of Axl Rose?" Not Axl Rose. I'm sorry, Slash. And anyway, he made some funny comments. So here he's saying, "Axl hurts my ears. Slash though, wonderful guitar player."
That's Michael at the show. Doesn't he have his own show?
Yes, he does. The Bottom Line. Yeah.
I saw a little clip of that after he was already done. But yeah, Michael.
Yeah, it's a good show. I've been catching it whenever I can, and it's always available, just like these shows that we're doing. They don't go away after we're done.
I think he goes off in the afternoon. Isn't that right, Michael? Let us know. I think yours shows like in the afternoon on like just right in the middle smack. He doesn't care that people are working or anything. He's like, I'm going on now.
Right,
awesome.
right. Okay, I'm gonna put another link up in case someone wants to hop on the show here with us. Okay. Let's just take a second, boys and girls. Okay, there's a link right there. If anybody wants to pop on for a bit and join the party. And once again, there's a few more people here than I said this last time. My wife is keeping track of everybody that answers this question. If you were going to if you were going to start a band, what would you name your rock band? And if you were going to okay, getting tongue tied here. What would be the name of your band, and what instrument would you play in that band? Just leave that in the chat, and every time my wife sees it, she's writing down your name. And then we'll get your address, and we're going to send you a gift certificate. So, what would you name your band? What instrument would you play? That's what we want to hear. And anything else you want to say. If you have a story you want to tell, you want to pop on and tell something, you're more than welcome. We're real free flowing here. Bill K mentioned the Pink Sock podcast. And there's a chance that Michael might be on tonight. Michael Usnick from the Pink Sock. I invited him. He wasn't sure yet if he was going to be able to make it or not. So anyway, all right. So let's go. What do we want to talk about here, as far as the next band? I've got lots of stuff here.
You got Leonard Skinner on the list.
Leonard Skinner.
You know what? I'll have to check. Okay, I've got a lot of pages.
Yeah.
Let me take a look here.
Well, when the guys I forgot how many guys went to this high school from Leonard Skinner, but they had a gym teacher that they hated, and the gym teacher hated them. So eventually they said, I guess just to being smartasses, they named the band after him.
I must have that because I did read that earlier.
The band is called Leonard Skinner.
Leonard Skinner. Right.
But the band, the gym teacher's name was Leonard Skinner. There was no D at the end, but they just made it,
Yeah,
I think that's
Leonard
awesome.
Skinner was on the list. Yeah. They were clashing constantly with the gym teacher because they had long hair, which was against school policy and things like that. So the gym teacher was always harassing them. And so they basically named the band after him.
And
a couple of E's in both words,
Well, eventually they became friends with the gym teacher later on in the years, and the gym teacher thought it was great that they named the band after him and everything. And I read where he passed away. Leonard Skinner passed away in 2010 of Alzheimer's, so he's no longer with us.
That kind of reminds me of Nirvana's first music. I don't know if it was the first one, but that Smells Like Teen Spirit music video.
Yeah. Right.
What's interesting in that video, if you watch, they've got the janitor going back and forth with the mop, and apparently
the
that's
mop
relevant.
is a big bucket. Correct.
Yeah, the symbolism of that is that apparently, I'm blanking out on our lead man's name. What's the lead? The leader of Nirvana who passed away?
Kurt Cobain.
Thank you. Blanked out. Kurt Cobain apparently, not only from not completing high school, becomes the janitor at his school that he didn't complete. So how difficult that must have been. He was the janitor, so he put that in the video to symbolize that, that whole thing and that frustration. Yeah, I thought that was a really cool visual. And once you know that, and you watch that video again, you really understand what that's all about there. And all the
I absolutely love that video. I mean, it played
it's fantastic.
5-10 times a day when it first came out on MTV. And
their raw energy is amazing.
Weird Al did a really good parody of it too. Weird Al Yankovic.
Weird Al is great. What I think, these bands right now, the way they're jumping around, some of them, not all of them, it's very rehearsed. What I liked about Nirvana, I was just watching some of their raw footage again. When they come out, it was like an explosion, sloppy as hell, but it was like a garage band on 15, and we need a little bit of that back again. Some bands just come out, it just feels like balls out playing, just balls out. I love it.
Right.
We need all the genres, but we need a little more of that in that particular genre would be nice. That rawness, I would like to see.
Yeah, Mary Jane Blanick just said that she'd name her band Boulder Holders, and she played the drums.
Oh, I think I'm in love.
Great.
that the visual that just gave me as a drummer. That was fantastic.
What about Twisted Sister? What does that mean? Okay, yeah, I'll get to that in a second. I do have.
Do you have
I
it?
do have some stuff on Twisted Sister.
Well, Michael Altini would have some info on that for sure.
Michael Altini would have some info on it. And let's see.
I want to know what the hell was Bachman Turner Overdrive.
Bill
Bachman,
Randy Bachman.
Bill Kay
Is that
said
who
he'd
it was?
take his band, the Hurdy Gurdy Band, and he'd be the singer.
I don't know if Michael knows this. He said it. I don't know if he's maybe making up a band. Kraken.
Okay.
Kraken. Kraken.
Kraken. Michael Nolan would name of the band
I
Kraken.
think he just said Kraken.
He just said Kraken. What would he play? Okay, Twisted
Release the
Sister.
Kraken.
According to legend, the band began as Silver Star, and it changed its name when an audience member fortuitously referred to the members, who were done up as heavy metal drag queens, as a bunch of twisted sisters.
Huh.
They were dressed up like a bunch of drag queens, and so.
Oh yeah. That was the scene.
An audience member referred to them as Twisted Sister, and that took hold.
It's kind of like the New York Dolls. Yeah, the New York Dolls. That was the same thing.
Right.
They were way before Twisted Sister.
Kiss started out as Wicked Lester before they determined they needed something a little more prime time. When Peter Criss brought up the fact that they had previously played in a band called Lips, Paul Stanley chimed in with the name that would accompany him and his compatriots to stardom with Kiss, because Peter Criss was in a band called Lips.
Well, I get the T-Rex. I get the Tommy Bolin part for the T. Does anyone know what the Rex was all about? Other than it sounds like a dinosaur.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Let me see. I did.
We're throwing those out there for the crowd. Those guys, anybody, if you're fans of any of these bands and know that.
Yeah, T-Rex.
How did
T-Rex? Well, T-Rex, let's see.
They might be out there Googling for us.
60s psychedelic folk duo. Oh, the original name was Tyrannosaurus Rex. It evolved into glam rock. After they evolved into glam rock gods, Bolin chopped the name down to T-Rex, which made they didn't want to be named after a dinosaur to begin with. Maybe the same thing. Yeah.
Plus, Tyrannosaurus is such a long name.
Such a long name.
Can you imagine?
How do you get that on a pick?
All the lights you'd have to use for the lighting. Well, Led Zeppelin got away with it. Yeah.
Barely fit on a bass drum.
That's why they went with the cymbals on Led Zeppelin.
Yeah, exactly. Motley Crue. What do we know about Motley Crue? Mick Mars was playing with his old cover band, White Horse. He heard someone describing them as a motley-looking crew.
So it's a factual name.
Yeah. So he took that phrase with him, saying someday he wanted to play in a band with that name, and eventually he did.
Yeah, they cover that a little bit in their documentary Dirt.
Okay.
Which is a great documentary, but make sure you don't have kids in the room, especially for the opening scene. Talk about the Sunset Strip.
Well, what I'm seeing in the chat, I'm glad Nirvana stuck with the name Nirvana, because Levi Joe is saying the original name was Fecal Matter. Is that true?
Oh. I believe it. I believe it, though. I mean, because how are we going to get to the Butthole Surfers and those bands? I mean, how did you get that name?
Yeah.
That's just like trying too hard. Let's be really silly, Butthole Surfers.
Green Day was a slang term for a day spent smoking marijuana. And frontman Billy Joe Armstrong wrote a song called Green Day about his first experience with the drug. And it soon replaced Sweet Children as the band's name. So it was all about smoking pot. Worthy of the band's name.
And then we got all the bands that name themselves simply from the area. Like we mentioned Boston earlier. How many bands do we have from areas? What are the other ones? And there's a bunch where they just Chicago,
Boston, Kansas.
There's 3. got to be more, a lot more than that.
Yeah, I thought there was more than that.
I'm sure there is. That's a ballsy thing to do too. I talked about that a little bit last time.
Although Chicago's original name was Chicago Transit Authority, then they changed it to Chicago. Yeah, they were CTA.
Wow. Oh, Alabama. There's another one. Alabama. But yeah, that's a gutsy thing. We're going to name our band after the state, and suddenly decide that you represent the state. I knew a band in Arizona that did that. They were kind of like the Eagles. And I think Eagles were really close to calling themselves California. I bet you.
Oh, really? Maybe, yeah.
That's pretty,
Well, there's also that one band, the Presidents of the United States. Remember them?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
The Presidents of the United States.
Oh, yeah. I remember them. Yeah. I think they had a couple of big songs.
Yeah, one of them was about peaches.
Yeah.
Peaches and cream.
It's a really weird video.
Yeah.
The whole video, there's all kind of, it's psychedelic, happy,
right.
What's the term I'm looking for? Oh, I'm missing it. There's a term for that, but I'm missing it. Indie, kind of indie. Yeah, in that way. Modern indie. I don't know. I think, those bands, I mean, gosh, we still got like ones like the Chili Peppers that are interesting. I never knew that one, or like Jane's Addiction. We knew he was with Jane, a girl named Jane. She was probably addicted to something. So they got Jane Says, so you can kind of put that together.
I haven't heard that story yet. That probably is a pretty good one, Jane's Addiction.
It's got to be something around there.
I think they're kind of coming back a little bit right now, Jane's Addiction. I've been hearing things about them.
Terry Farrell has been deciding to, he kind of was done, but since some of these performances, again, like we saw with the Foo Fighters recently, the Foo Fighters had him come out at the end of Lollapalooza a couple times and perform with them. Been Caught Stealing, and that's on video. So I think that's kind of reviving. Wonder why Heart called themselves Heart. It's kind of simple, I guess, just because it's a love thing. Two girls in the front. No. They were so Led Zeppelin-ish. It was kind of weird that they went with Heart.
Yeah. Steppenwolf has kind of a funny story. A producer suggested they change their name from Sparrows. You imagine Sparrows doing Born to be Wild?
I'm glad. Yeah. It just doesn't sound right.
Or goddamn the Pusher Man, or the Pusher is a monster. By the
I was
Sparrows.
in a spin-off. I was in a band. It was a spin-off of that. That was called Whoop Tongue.
This producer suggested that they change their name to the title of this Herman Hesse's 1927 novel, which describes the struggle between the human and animal. Steppenwolf. Dual Natures making Born to be Wild a perfect soundtrack. Yeah, I don't know. I think it would have been good by the Sparrows too.
There's a lot.
Go ahead, Dan.
To me, there's a whole lot about selling albums. There's a strategy behind it, I think, too.
Right.
Looking at like when the Beatles first started, or some of these historical bands.
Yeah.
They had good music, but they didn't really have a name, and they had to come up with a name. Nowadays, well, in the recent history, you've got bands out there. Their music's not that great, but they got catchy names. Or something that intrigues you. Like first time I ever bought a Boston album, I had never even heard of the guys. I was in the Navy at the time, and I used to buy one album a week. So I go down there and I see this flying saucer on the front of this album. I go, man, that's badass looking. So then I realized, oh, it's a guitar upside down. I bought the album. Never even heard the band before, but little PR stuff, that'll catch your eye. Now I listen to music, and it was one of the best bands I ever heard in my life. But if that album would have been a plain album, I wouldn't have bought it. So there's certain ways you got to, get your followers in there different ways.
Well, it also has a lot to do with your genre. So, for example, like when the Beatles came out, you had the Monkees, and you had this, it represented, okay, we sound like this. So that's part of the marketing. Right. So I agree with you, Dan. Right. And so today, even more so, you can tell by a name as soon as you hear it, whether it's hip hop, is that punk, right away. That's part of it right there.
Right.
So
ZZ Top's kind of got an interesting story. The Texas Trio. I mean, Billy Gibbons had a blues obsession. You can tell when he plays. He originally considered combining the names of two of his favorite blues guys, ZZ Hill and BB King. But then he decided that ZZ King just wouldn't work, so he just shifted it to ZZ Top.
That's right.
It started out being named after two of his blues heroes. So that's kind of cool. I like ZZ Top is great. I've seen ZZ Top once. They're coming around again. I think they're coming to the Paso Robles Fairgrounds here. I'm going to see Alice Cooper this month on the 23rd at Vina Robles. I'm sure you've probably been there in Paso Robles. Vina Robles Amphitheater. It's a winery is what it is. You know, and they have a nice little amphitheater. I've seen a few concerts there, and they have a lot of good people coming in there. Yeah.
Nice beer garden. You got a nice little beer garden up
there. Yeah, that's right.
Pay a little extra money, sit up there.
Right.
You know, the thing that we got a lot of these young bands that I remember when we were younger, we were working on our names. We spent too much time on the name. And one of the things is that, you know what, if you suck, it doesn't matter what your name is. You know, Led Zeppelin, I don't care what you would have named Led Zeppelin, you would know their name today. The Beatles, the same thing. You know, those big bands like that. So a lot of the youth today or the young up and comers out there think that it's about the name, and it's not. Make sure it's your music first. Mm-hmm. People will buy it no matter what. If you're badass, they will buy your stuff. If you're called A, you know, or D, you know, they don't care. So, you know, it makes it fun. It's great. What we're talking about today, it's, you know, it's nice to be creative and make sure it's the music first. All of us like those albums because of the music, not because of the name. That which came just kind of like Jefferson Starship and Airplane. Now there were legalities there, why they went from Airplane to Starship, you know? Yeah. But we knew who they were. It's things like that.
We knew who they were. Right.
Prince, same thing happened to Prince. Legalities, you know, where he changed to the symbol. Wow.
To the symbol,
right? Formerly, what was it? The artist formerly known as
the symbol formerly known as Prince.
That was a FU. I love it. That was beautiful.
You know, my respect for his ability grows almost daily. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the guy was just a real talent.
You ever see the Dick Clark interview when he first came out? Remember, Dick Clark had that show, The Hits, and that was one of the few ways you could see bands. Yeah, that was one of the first things on TV. Prince came on, and he's having a hell. It was one of the most. Dick Clark even said that was the most awkward interviews he ever had, and I watched it. It is painful. Yeah, he's like, "What do you think of this?" And he's just like, "I don't know." he doesn't answer anything.
That's funny.
It's hilarious. Check it out if you get a chance.
Yeah, Michael Nolan, the bottom line says Alice, the original Hollywood vampire. That's right. They had that. They had the whole second floor, which isn't saying a lot. The whole second floor of the Rainbow Club reserved for just the Hollywood vampires, and chairman of the board was Alice Cooper.
What was Alice's actual name again? He's an Arizona boy. Speaking of Arizona,
yeah, you know, God, the old
memories. He changed his.
The old memories.
There's a reason.
Huh?
No, but he changed his name for a reason. The Alice Cooper was. Did we talk about that already? Did I just have a brain cloud?
I read something about that today. Why it's called Alice?
Yeah. Go ahead, Dan. Sorry.
Was it? I can't remember exactly. I can't remember exactly. You know what the storyline was, but it had something. They wanted something opposite of what you're seeing on stage. He said you got these cross dressers and everything on stage. And Alice seems like such a normal thing, you know. So they wanted to contrast. They wanted to contrast between the name and what you're seeing on stage.
Right.
Yeah, right. I thought his name was like Alex something or something like that, and then I thought there was some tie-in with a
movie or something. I don't think it was Alex something.
What is his name?
I think I'm getting warm here. No.
Someone said Vince. Someone says Vince Edwards or something like that, and then that's Michael. And then Mary says Vince. Is that Fernier? I didn't know. His name is Vincent?
Vincent Damon Furnier.
Is that right? Wow. What nationality is that?
Yeah, no,
I love Alice Cooper. He's got a hell of a radio show, too.
I guess you pronounce his last name Furnier, F-U-R-N-I-E-R. Furnier.
Wow.
Almost Alice Cooper you're talking about.
Yeah.
I knew that wasn't his name. Okay. So he's another one of those guys that made a name out of his own name. It's pretty cool. Like David Bowie, those guys. Sometimes you have to do that. people will say to me, so Lou Mars, they'll go, how did you get, is that your name? Actually, it's part of my real name. My legal name is Louis Matasciello. It's like 14 letters. My last name, right? Louis Angelo Matasciello. Yeah, I'm Italian. So the first time I got a sponsor in 1990, it was for the MTV Ball and Chain Tour. And they come with a stick and they go, your name ain't going to fit on the stick, dude. It was like, so they kept chopping back the letters on my name. And they're like, here, how about Louis Marish? I'm like, that sounds like maraschino cherry. It sounds like crap. So finally, they just kept cutting it back. And the first part of my last name is M-A-R-A. I just said, take it back. Move the S. It's S-C-H. I said, move the S up. And then we took Louis and we made it Lou. And I've been Lou Mars ever since, and that's how that stuff happens. And so
that's how that stuff happens. Yeah.
Does anybody ever ask you? Does anybody ever ask if you're related to Bruno?
You know what? I used to get that. And you know what's weird too? Mars, I didn't know at the time. No, it's true. Mars is very much a Filipino name. I didn't know that. And I was raised in the Philippines until I was 10 or 11 years old. Yeah, I grew up in the Philippine Islands. So when I came to the States and all of a sudden I'm Mars, Bruno is Filipino, but he wasn't, I don't believe he was born there. Don't, fact check me on that, but I don't believe he's born there, but he is Filipino. So the bizarreness that I ended up with this name from where I came from, but that wasn't it. Yeah. But yeah, I get that. And I'm like, oh, you mean like Bruno? And I'm like, man, 1990 was a long time before Bruno, man. I've been Mars for a long time. But I love him.
I didn't know you were from the Philippines. I've been to the Philippines a couple of times.
Yeah. And I wanted to say something about Texas for you because I was complaining about your heat. I will say this, and this for the country. I've been all over this country. There are no nicer people on a regular basis than Texas in this United States. When you go anywhere in Texas, they're so nice. They make me suspicious. They are. Hi, how you doing though? How you the open doors? And you're like, what do you want? In California, they don't do that. California, nobody does anything unless they want something. But Texas, man, some nice people in your state, my friend. Nice people.
We try.
Yeah, no, they succeed. Beautiful people. So speaking of Texas, what are some other bands out of Texas that have? Is there any band that's ever tried to call themselves Texas? It's a big state. Be a gutsy move.
Not that I know of.
Stevie Ray
a country
Vaughan,
band?
Stevie Ray Vaughan was Texas, right?
He was Dallas, yeah.
Dallas, yeah.
Yeah, we've had a few
surprised.
We've had some pretty famous musicians come out of Dallas. Going back to the blues, back in the 20s and 30s.
Wasn't there a band, the Texas Tornadoes, or something like that?
Yeah, the Texas Tornadoes. I think that was Jimmy Vaughn. I think that was Stevie's brother.
Yeah,
is that right? I've never heard that name.
I'll have to double check on that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you think? I was thinking of the Fabulous Thunderbirds. Remember those guys?
Oh yeah, I saw them with the Rolling Stones.
I thought somebody was related in that band too.
That was Jimmy Vaughn. I think it was Jimmy Vaughn was in that one.
Yes, that's it. Yeah. That one song they did sounded just like Stevie Ray. They had that riff. Sounded just like it. That was cool. Good
man, Stevie Ray Stevie Ray did a lot of like Hendrix type music, but man, he really played it with power.
There is a song on YouTube. There is a.
I don't know how to describe it. It was very muscular guitar playing. That's what it sounds like,
Well, I'm a big fan of great roadie work, and you can find this on YouTube. There's a Stevie Ray song where Stevie Ray, he breaks something on the guitar. I think it's more than a string based on the way checks out his guitar. He goes to his amp, he comes back. He's in the middle of the song singing. If you watch carefully in the video, you'll see somebody walk behind him, right? And you're like, who the hell's that? All of a sudden you just see someone come behind him. If you pay attention, at one point his guitar is one particular color, and then the other one is white. All of a sudden, if you keep watching, this guy changes the guitar on him while he's playing and singing, switches the guitar back in his hands. He doesn't miss a word, doesn't miss a chord. It's a full guitar switch on the road. It's like changing a flat tire while the car is driving, folks.
Right.
It's one of the most badass switch outs I've ever seen, and it's Stevie Ray Vaughan's video. Check it out. Look for it. It's awesome. It is killers.
Now, what video is this again?
I'm trying to remember the song. If you go to Stevie Ray Vaughan, it's one of his top ones. No one ever noticed it. I never noticed it until we were sitting with friends. All of a sudden I go, who's that guy going behind him? And all of a sudden I go, his guitar color just changed. And we thought, did they edit the video, put two together? So we go back and we look, no, his guitar has changed while he's playing. Yeah, it's one of the, like I said, top songs. You'll find it, look it up there, and you'll see a guy float behind him and literally be behind him and move this guitar. It's great.
Well, to answer a couple of questions that came up earlier,
I bought him
Adam
some time.
MC says that there was a country band called Little Texas, and he's absolutely right. I actually saw them in concert at the Paso Fairgrounds on one of the free sponsored shows, Little Texas. And of course, let's see.
Zepp Pearl says there was a band called Texas, but they were Scottish, and I just looked that up. Yeah, they were Texas are a Scottish alternative band from Glasgow. They were founded. They were founded in 1986 by Johnny McElhone, formerly of the band's Altered Images and Hipsway. They're not true Texan though, so they're just using our name.
Right. Well, did anybody say this already? Vince Furnier. Vince Furnier was Alice Cooper's original name. I don't remember if anybody threw that out. Yeah, I might have missed it because I've been busy looking for things. And yes, there is. There's a band called Texas. Okay, Zepp Pearl says, yes, there is. Was a band called Texas. So there was an actual band called Texas.
I thank Mike for saying he likes my name.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks, Mike, for liking my name. My family did not approve. The Italians did not approve of me changing my name to Mars at all. No, I was banned from family gatherings for 2 years.
So your name is legally changed?
I did legally change it for a period of about 10 years, and then I switched it back. So I still, everybody knows me as Mars, but yeah, the family, the Italians, man, you don't mess, what's the matter? You don't like our name,
Right. You're not proud of your heritage?
Business. Or what, Yeah, a few of them got it. It's business. It's business. No, you shame us. You don't want to be part of us. You don't come anymore. Like, man,
you don't want to get cut out of the Italian gatherings. That's for sure.
Bad.
my mother was the only one in her family that wasn't born in Italy. The rest of them all came over to Ellis Island on the boat. Barbaccia was the name.
So yes, our name's on the wall too.
Yeah, and you know what? We moved. My father promised my mother he'd never take her away from her big family in New York. And a couple of years afterward, I think I lived to about 2.5 years old in New York, and then we moved to California. But so he took her from her family in New York, and you know what? I didn't see them till I was in my 40s. I got cousins back there, and I went and stayed with an aunt and uncle and cousins. Betty and I took the Long Island Railroad out there, from Manhattan, and it was really cool. But it was kind of crazy. All those years went by, and we saw all my father's, brothers and sisters and cousins, many of which were my age. They were right here in California. 3.5 hours away from where I lived in Vegas, so we saw them all the time. And of course, Vegas is a popular destination, so we saw them all year long, they come out and stay at the house.
Oh, yeah.
I'd be with my cousins having just a ball and stuff like that. It was a great time. But I kind of feel bad that I didn't get to know my New York relatives earlier and get to know them better, because most of them were already, the aunts and uncles. My mom's brother that we went to visit on Long Island, he was the only living out of 9 kids. Him and my mother were the only ones alive, and of course grandparents were long since passed and stuff like that.
Yeah,
my relatives, they don't get that, Go ahead, Dan.
My heritage is kind of odd. I've got my dad was adopted, so his birth last name was Buckingham. We're English. And McNew is his adopted name, and on my mother's side, my mother's side, we have some Native American in us. So basically, when we came over on the Mayflower, I was there to greet myself. So
Gotcha. Yeah, that's cool.
Little on both sides. Yeah.
Okay, this is going to be. My wife just brought this note in. My wife is keeping track, and we're having a drawing.
We got some new people.
at the end of the show, and some new people. Julia's come in, and I want you to know, Julia and Zep Pearl, that we're going to have a drawing, and all we're asking is for you to tell us what you would name your band and what instrument you would play in your band. And if you tell us that, your name's going in the drawing, and you're going to get sent a gift card. I'll contact you later and get your address and everything. We can send you a gift card. So anyway, this is the last call. This is the last call for entering the contest. All right.
That's great.
Yeah.
I think Julia's band would probably be something like the Baker's Dozen.
I'm not even going to ask. I'm not even going to ask.
No, well, Julia bakes a lot of cookies and sweet things all the time.
Yeah.
She's always
Julia. You actually know her.
No, well, no, not personally, just on Facebook.
Oh,
we're all friends. We're all friends on Facebook. Yeah.
I was gonna say, how do you know this stuff? And then we got Zep Pearl said hello to us always. Give him a shout out back, whoever that was.
John Paul Jones. Zep Pearl says John Paul Jones of Led Zeppelin is not his real name. Do you guys know what his real name is?
Oh, I knew this one. That's correct.
I don't for some reason. I mean, I thought it was his real name.
There's a lot of show names out there. I tried to explain that to my family at the time. I was like, show names. And there's a lot of, you have to do it sometimes,
Right.
It's ironic too. A lot of the old artists, like Engelbert Humperdinck and all that, Tom Jones.
It's John Richard Baldwin.
Really?
Oh, that's the real
John Richard Baldwin.
It would have taken me a while. I don't remember that. I remember being something different, but I didn't remember.
I've actually never heard that before. And I thought I knew a lot about Led Zeppelin's beginnings. But you never quit learning. I mean, there's just so much to learn.
It's just like, there's even little things. Ringo Starkey was his name,
Yeah.
And Ringo wasn't even his first name. What was this? Richard. It was Richard was his name.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I guess he was always wearing jewelry and rings and stuff. So they coined the nickname Ringo, and then later, like you said, they changed Starsky to Star. Yeah.
Yeah. My family loved the Beatles. Could I do my name? No. See, I'm almost over it, guys. 2 years. Yeah, but then when I started getting all the accolades, then it's, hey, he's with us.
He's one of us.
Yeah. He's got a world record. He's with us. Yeah, yeah, thanks, fam. Oh, who we got? We got some. What about like Smashing Pumpkins? We got anything weird like that? How the heck do you get a name like that? Anybody know Smashing Pumpkins?
Yeah, no. Anybody in the chat?
Give us some info on that.
Any information on the Smashing Pumpkins?
Smashing Pumpkins.
I always thought it was Billy Corgan's favorite pastime, so I don't know.
Well, I don't even want to get into that.
I had my Billy. We done my Billy story.
When I see Billy Corgan walking up to my house on Halloween, I'm hiding my pumpkins.
He kind of looks like Uncle Fester now. I'm sorry, man. Sorry, Billy. He wears the same that outfit. It's just like, dude, what are you doing, man? Oh, he looks like a scary monk.
How about the punk pioneers, the Clash? They kept listening to the British Evening Standard tabloid. They kept using the word Clash, trying to sensationalize their headlines. Clash this, there's a clash here, Clash there, and so they just adopted that name as the name of their band.
See, once again, having a name like that, before I even heard the Clash, I heard the name. And I already had a mental image in my mind. Well, this must be some type of punk band that's against authority, and they're clashing with the authority. That's exactly what I thought.
Well, that's when we talked about the commercialism of a genre. Your name at that time. Yeah. When you're playing to sell, that's what you're going after. But part of the reason you name your band after yourself, like later on when I did the Lou Mars band, was because you get tired of losing a member. And then that member going, hey, I'm a fourth of this band, a fourth of the rights of the name is me. So the way you get around that, by the way. Yeah, that's why people are like, well, what's the name of your band? You're like, well, I'm a narcissist. It's called Lou Mars Band. No, it's because of legal reasons.
Yep.
You do it for legal. So every time I switch somebody out, I don't have to lose my darn name, You can't sue me over my name. So that's why that happens. People
makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, you learn that the hard way, and then you start doing it. And that's why you do that.
Well, Bill K is saying that Billy Corgan said that it was just a band name that he made up as a kid. No special explanation.
That sounds like Billy.
I still think he used to smash pumpkins on Halloween.
I think you're probably right.
I remember smashing a few in my youth, actually.
Intense dude.
I'd forgotten about that.
So who do we got left that we want to bring up? Who's up next?
Gertie. Okay, so Betty's still keeping track, putting the names in.
Oh yeah. When are you going to do the drawing?
That's up to her. We may not even do it during the show, actually, but we'll see. Yeah.
I had a person just recently on Instagram send me this thing going, I'm adding you to this art show drawing. And I'm like, that's awesome. Well, okay. And then they sent me this thing, and it was a drawing of me. I'm like, wait a minute. what the hell's this? You're adding me to a drawing. They drew me into something. Whatever.
Okay.
I love that weird shit, though.
Well,
what about the Doors?
I was just thinking. I think Metallica's got kind of an interesting story. Lars Ulrich's friend Ron Quintino was brainstorming titles for a new metal music fanzine, and he proposed Metal Mania and Metallica. When Metallica was abandoned as a possible title, Ulrich snapped it up for the band he just formed, Metal Massacre. So they changed the name in '82 from Metal Massacre to Metallica. Let's see. So that's how Metallica got a suggestion for something completely different. And Lars just grabbed that up. I don't blame him. It's a good one. It's a really good one. Did we talk about Motley Crue?
Yeah.
Yeah. We talked about Motley Crue.
Okay.
Well, here's one about Megadeth. I read this one earlier. Dave Mustaine was on a subway or something, public transportation, and he was trying to think of a name of the band, and he said, and he had a flyer that I guess he had picked up off the floor of the subway, and he's sitting there writing down different names. Then he started reading the flyer. The flyer was talking about nuclear destruction and all this Megadeth.
Oh, okay.
And he goes, so he wrote down Megadeth, but he had to change the name. Because if you look at the Megadeth, that's Deth. He had to take the A out because there was already another band with Megadeth. Okay. So he changed the spelling of it.
Wow.
Yeah, that's part of the bummers, because that's again why sometimes you'll name your band after one of your members or yourself if you're doing most of the writing, like I do for mine when I do play anymore. My original band under my name was Broken Toys, with an S. Then we found out, there's a Broken Toys. So then we changed it to a Z, and we had that going around for a while. By the time we found out that there was another Z somewhere across the country, we already had, recordings on, you put all this money into propaganda. So that's, again, is why a lot of times people are just like, screw it. You're a leader of the band. You're writing most of the material. Just put it under your name, That's why that happens.
Are you saying you used to be in Broken Toys? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I did. I was in POD too, the original way back. There was I don't talk about too much of the bands that I've been in before, because it's the last 10 years is mostly where I really climbed and excelled as far as accolades. It was all individual stuff. So I don't like giving bands I played with credit that didn't give me anything back. That sounds cruel, but it's just the way it was.
I'm just curious. I was just curious about that, because the band I used to manage, Aska, they've actually performed with Broken Toys before.
So no way.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did they play? Yeah, we would go through California. I did Texas a few times and stuff like that. So, yeah, that was
I was thinking it was in Houston where they played.
That would be correct. Actually, that's weird. It's a small world. That is actually bizarre. Also, one of the underground bands I was in that I will plug that was really cool is 13 Dead. Those guys were badass. They were like a grunge around mid-90s, very, very popular out of Colorado, Denver, Colorado band that I jumped in. And those guys were badass. That was a band where every single guy, and that they had an album that every song just kicked like Montrose, except grunge style. Good stuff. But in that band, by the way, So for Weird Names, we were in the studio and we had Mike Nile who did Alice in Chains stuff with them. We had a great producer. We had an ammo box that just happened to be in the recording studio in Alley Studios, a big studio in Colorado, X ammo box, and it had a 13 on it. And that's how we got the name. We looked over and we saw, I go, 13 dead. There you go. Now that's just how you get weird stuff. Yeah. I want Alice in Chains. Speaking of that, how did they get their name? Anyone know Alice in Chains out there? That's got to be a good story. I wonder if they like Cooper or something.
I know it definitely gives you a mental image when you hear the name.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Interesting band. I wonder if there's got to be a tie-in to something on that one. There's got to be.
No, there is an interesting story. There's an interesting story with Alice in Chains. And
you digging for it?
I've read so many of these stories the last few days. But if I find it, well, let me just go through like the Moody Blues first. They got a boozy beginning because they were called M&B 5, named after Mitchells and Butlers, and it was a pub. So they named the band after a pub, M&B. And then later they switched to the Moody Blues, in part as an ode to famous 30s Duke Ellington composition, Mood and Dingo.
My list.
Huh?
Oh.
Okay, so yeah, but I don't really know where that is at the moment. I thought it was all in here.
Yeah, yes, I did.
I'm sorry, I have Alice in Chains. I have the name was taken from lead singer Lane Staley's previous group, the glam metal band Alice in Chains. Staley shed some light on the subject in a Rolling Stone article in 1992. The name came from a side project of my old group, Alice in Chains. We were going to have this band that dressed up in drag and played heavy metal as a joke. Alice in Chains bassist Johnny Bokalos explained the name in 2011 book, Everybody Loves Our Town, A History of Grunge, Bacolas, and Russ Klatt, the lead singer of Slaughterhouse-5. We're at the party in North Seattle talking about backstage passes. One of the passes said, "Welcome to Wonderland." And they started talking about that being an Alice in Chains. You know what? And that's where the story that I know kind of gets cut off.
We had someone kind of mirroring you on the chat with your story. That's awesome.
Let's see. The name came from a side project, of an old group.
Yep, they got it. Matches up.
Dressed in drag. Sounds like he found the same article.
Yeah, the same thing.
Okay, Bill, finish the story.
It's funny. Sometimes
Alice
things can be
Chains instead of Alice in Chains.
See, it's kind of funny. Sometimes you can start something off as a joke, and suddenly it turns successful, and you didn't even plan on it. I mean, that's the same way with a lot of music too. I've heard a lot of artists talk about. I didn't think that song was any good, and it was the #1 song, and the song they wanted to be, on the A side, didn't even register, So
Right.
I can't think of how many bands I've been in where that situation is studios like that.
They were originally going to be Alice in Wonderland, Alice in Chains.
Oh, that makes sense.
They were going to use the letter N instead of N because it didn't sound like bondage.
So it didn't sound like bondage. Yeah.
Still, that with a name like that,
they were going to use the letter N instead of in Chains.
You run into a lot of problems at Disney though with a name like that. I mean, Alice in Wonderland.
Right.
You're up against Disney on that one.
Yeah, that could be tough there for sure.
Licensing, even though it's a Lewis Carroll book, but there's licensing issues. That's a whole nother monster that you're talking about. Can't name yourself Disney.
Nowadays, people have everything's licensed nowadays. Absolutely everything.
Oh.
You can't do anything without somebody already owning the license for it. It's really tough out there.
Yeah, you got trademarks, but what really made a big difference, that's a great point, because I remember when this occurred, because of .coms coming around, that's when the intellectual property trademark came into play. That was huge in making it really complicated for artists, because now you could say it was my idea and patent an idea that had never been, you used to have that. You'd have the prototype, you'd have to have this, that, or a trademark. But now you had an idea. So someone could have said, well, that name was my idea first. Wow. That's rough. And that's where things got really messy. No doubt.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I know with songs, when you're getting a song copyrighted, and 5 years from now, someone else saying, "Well, no, that's my song." I had that first. You have to provide documentation that the lyrics with a date or something on it, that shows that was your thought. I mean, your stuff before this other person. So as a musician, you need to document everything. That's why everybody has all the lyrics still. They keep their lyrics. It's written on a napkin. That's evidence. So. As a musician, I'd keep everything.
One of my favorite '60s bands, and I still listen to them today a lot. They're still one of my favorite bands, the Cream. Eric Clapton, Jack Bruce, and Ginger Baker, power trio. Maybe one of the first power trios. And I guess we will have a drawing in a little while. I've got the stuff right here. Okay, so anyway, if you're wondering where the Cream got their name. Eric Clapton's work, with John Mayall and the Blues Breakers and some of the other bands he was in. The other guys were in great bands. They were considered the cream of the crop, and that's what the name. The cream of the crop of musicians at the time. And that's where the Cream came from. Yeah.
A little cocky, but okay.
And that is a little cocky.
It was a little cocky, but he can back it up.
The cream of the crop of '60s British blues rockers.
Wow. They weren't conceited. They were too good for that.
Right.
Gotta think about that one, folks.
I'm gonna go ahead and draw a winner.
Let's do it. Let's hear it. I want to hear it.
They're gonna mix these things up a little bit.
This will be the name of my next band.
And it's Mary Jane. Mary Jane Blanick, you're the winner.
We have a winner, Mary Jane.
Oh my God,
congratulations.
Mary Jane, congratulations.
That's the boulder holder, right?
If you're still there,
that was meant to be.
Okay,
that's his karma.
Now, Bill Kay's chiming in with some information on the band name Cream. Clapton, Bruce, and Baker already considered the cream of the crop amongst blues and jazz musicians in the exploding British music scene. Right on, Bill. I just said something very similar. Yeah. And Michael Nolan says Disney sucks.
I agree.
Who cares what they think?
Now it does. It didn't used to.
Yeah.
Used to be. There's used to be something for everybody.
A big thing going on between DeSantis, governor of Florida, and Disney right now. I don't want to get into that.
But, I was just in Florida. I heard about it.
Yeah, you were just in Florida. So Mary Jane, are you still on? Yes, she is. Thanks, Royce. Great. Well, private message me, Mary, with your address, okay?
Mary Jane says she got a Boulder group.
Mary Jane.
What's the name of the group again?
The winner.
What's the name of her group again?
Round of applause.
I think it's the Boulder Holders.
Boulder Holders.
That's right. The Boulder Holders won. The drummer for the Boulder Holders won tonight. Congratulations.
Wow. That is just too good to be true.
I know. Isn't that awesome?
If the Flintstones had a group.
That was really awesome.
Right? That would have been perfect. Boulder Holders would have been the Flintstones group. The Archies had one.
When I was a kid, we used to call them over-the-shoulder boulder holders.
That's right. Yeah. I knew exactly where she was going with that. Well, guys, I have to sign off. I'm at the end of my hour. I'm glad I got to hear the winner of the thingy. But I want to thank you again for including me in the show.
Oh, yeah, anytime. Anytime. You've become a regular.
That's the only thing I'm regular in, so I'm happy to be there.
Try some Pepto-Bismol.
I know. That's what I heard. I'm still using the other stuff they said for my wrinkles.
Oh yeah.
What was that?
The preparation
that was
H.
Another. Preparation H. Thank you, folks. Who knew? I was being called an a-hole anyways. Might as well use the cream to finish it off. Yeah. Anyways, guys, thank you again. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, buddy.
Ciao, everybody.
We'll see you again.
Goodbye, everybody. Thanks for supporting us online, everybody. Bye-bye, chatters. How do I get out? Oh, there.
All right. Dan, Just the two of us, you and I. So let's see, where were we? Mary Jane, congratulations. That was a great win. Okay, how about Derrick and the Dominoes? Now, I've heard so many stories about that band, you know, and a lot of it has to do with that whole album has songs written about George Harrison's ex-wife, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, Eric Clapton fell in love with her. I think they were actually married for a while, too, you know. Patty Boyd. Married to George Harrison. And, you know, George had an eye for the girls, and he catted around a bit. And so Eric Clapton, who was good friends with George Harrison, fell in love with her. And so Derrick is Eric, you know. And I've heard all kinds of different stories about it. Was almost like he was so in love with her, and it was so crazy. It was almost like masking his identity with the name of Derrick and the Dominoes, you know. But every time I find a story on it, it's a little bit different, you know. And it's the most recent story. The band was formed in the spring of '70. Derrick and the Dominoes featured a core lineup: Eric Clapton, Bobby Woodcock, Carl Rattle, and Jim Gordon. The late addition of Duane Allman gave the lone studio album a fiery sense of interplay. And I tell you, I looked for that album for a long time, and I kept finding a live version of Derrick and the Dominoes. And it didn't have Bell Bottom Blues or Layla on it. And I mean, those are my two favorite songs on the studio album, you know. And so the title, it seemed to reference both Eric and Duane's names. Actually, the group had been earlier billed as Dell and the Dominoes, as Clapton attempted to shift the spotlight away during a more collaborative period. Later, his label sought to make Clapton's presence clear by distributing buttons that said, "Derrick is Eric." Now, that's a little different version from what I've read before. I read it was a really strange time for him with his love for Patty Boyd and Bell Bottom Blues, Layla. All those songs were written about Patty Boyd.
That had to be an awkward time. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Okay. So Mary Jane sent the private message. Great. We get the gift card out to you, Mary. Thank you very much. I love Mary. You know, she I don't know how many times she's, you know, shared some posts that I've made and stuff like that. And she's got great posts of her own too, you know. And you talk about, I think you were talking about Julia and cooking earlier. Julia's up there saying bye to Lou. But Mary puts a lot of tasty treats on her Facebook post too, as well as Julia. So anyway, so that was Derrick and the Dominoes. And like I said, I read that originally he was almost hiding from the public by using Derrick instead of Eric. And I don't know if anybody else. Okay, yeah, Bill Kay is a wealth of knowledge here. When Eric Clapton's new band, Derrick and the Dominoes, played their first gig on June 14th, 1970, they didn't have a name until a few minutes before the gig. Well, that's interesting, Bill. Thank you.
To me, that tells me what, just like I was saying earlier, you know, you had a lot of artists out there that had great music, but didn't have a name.
Didn't have a name.
Nowadays, people are putting out their name and they don't really have the music. You know, it's kind of reversed now.
Great name, though.
Yeah, they were so talented that the name was the last thing they thought of, it seemed like, you know. With newer bands nowadays, the name's the first thing they come up with.
Right. That's exactly right.
I was just reading something about the Traveling Wilburys, which is interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, they decided not to use their own names in the band. And George Harrison and Jeff Lynne have been calling studio equipment like the limiters, the equalizers, some of the studio equipment as Wilburys.
Okay.
And their first name was, well, they thought it was the Trembling Wilburys. Then Jeff Lynne suggested Traveling instead of Trembling.
Okay.
So it's basically named after.
Isn't that crazy how these names finally get decided upon? It's just wild.
It's just studio equipment nickname came up. You know, that's what Traveling Wilburys is.
Wow, that's crazy. Okay, well, we have a little news here on the Doors. This one took a winding path into the rock canon. Poet William Blake's 18th century post-French Revolution book, The Marriage of Heaven and Hell, initially inspired Aldous Huxley to give a mescaline soaked 1954 tome the title of The Doors of Perception, which in turn led a collection of late 60s era rockers to call their group The Doors. Wow, that's a mouthful. I'd have to read that 3 or 4 more times. I'm not going to do it here and now, but I'm just saying that's a mouthful. Deep Purple guitarist Ritchie Blackmore suggested they change the name to Deep Purple. They'd been calling themselves Roundabout. Ritchie Blackmore suggested a change to Deep Purple after a song that went back to the big band era. It was first cut by Paul Whitman band in the 30s. That's where that name come from. A song from the 30s, Deep Purple. Wow, that's interesting. Cheap Trick. The name was inspired by a Slade concert where bassist Tom Peterson commented that the band used every cheap trick in the book as part of their act. That's a hell of a compliment right there.
Here's one about Judas Priest, how they came up with their name. They came up with their name from a Bob Dylan song, The Ballad of Frankie Lee and Judas Priest.
Yeah, no, I had heard that. I'd read that before. Yeah,
it's pretty cool. I never knew that.
No, I know. I didn't know until I saw it.
Bob Dylan team.
Dire Straits, brothers David and Mark Knopfler, along with friends John Isley and Pick Withers, formed Dire Straits, choosing a name believed to originate from a suggestion by a musician flatmate of Withers. He allegedly plucked it out of the air while they were rehearsing in the kitchen of a friend before Dire Straits recorded a 5-song demo tape under the name in 1977. So somebody just plucked it out of the air while they were rehearsing in a kitchen. Dire Straits. I think we could all use that.
I've got one from about Molly Hatchet. I read this. I knew this quite a while ago.
Okay.
But, the band Molly Hatchet. Well, that comes from back in the Civil War days. There was a girl from the North named Molly, and it's rumored that she was going down south and flirting with all these Confederate soldiers, leaving a trail of bodies in her path. She was going down, seducing these guys and killing them, and she was like a mass murderer.
Okay,
and she became known as Molly Hatchet because these bodies were dismembered. So it's kind of a weird one, but
wow, that is weird. Well, how about the Doobie Brothers? They became a 70s pop sensation. A bunch of hippies living together in a house in Northern California.
Well, there you go.
Maybe Big Sur. Search of a name for the band, a non-musical housemate suggested the Doobie Brothers. So you know what they were doing day and night, right?
Oh yeah. Hey, he said, pass that doobie here, brother.
The Eagles, during a drug and alcohol enhanced group trip to the Mojave Desert, they recalled reading about the Native American Hopi tribes' reverence for the eagle. Okay, so somebody suggested that name and it stuck. Because of the Hopi tribes' reference for eagles.
I think there may have been some peyote involved too, I think.
Yeah, no kidding, huh? The Faces, that were the Small Faces at one time, and Rod Stewart was in them. The Faces came out in the 60s, mod scene. I don't know if you remember the mod scene, but in my junior high school, the school was divided between mods and cowboys or ranchers, and the mods wore maybe it'd be a purple shirt with white polka dots and a white collar and white cuffs, and it was real mod looking, it was a style. And the ranchers or the cowboys, I think they called them, would wear like a sheep herder's jacket where the collars and all the inside had kind of a artificial fur, and then a certain kind of a suede boot, So the whole school was divided between the two camps, and it was all real friendly, and funny and stuff. But anyway,
we were the stoners, and the goat ropers. We call
it the Stoners and the Goat Ropers.
Yeah.
That was your version of that. Yeah.
If you remember the Rodeo Club or the Future Farmers of America, you're considered a goat roper. And of course, stoner, that's kind of, I guess there's a third group, the more intellectual people. But I was kind of more in the stoner group.
Right. Yeah, I went back and forth, I guess. So let's see. Michael said, okay, Michael. Amen, Dan. He was saying amen to something you said, Dan.
Oh, yeah. When the Eagles shot the cover for that album, peyote was involved. I figured it was.
Yeah, you could just tell by the lyrics,
Yeah.
Thanks for letting me vent, Bill. Bill was talking the word rainbow from the Old English word rainboga. Okay, interesting. The Eagles shot the cover. Peyote was involved. That's not hard to, I knew a guy that knew a guy. I knew a guy that approached another guy. These guys were older than me. And he was wanting to know if the other guy had something that he could get high on. And so he said, well, if you go out in the desert, you go over here and over there. We had we grew up in Vegas. It's all desert. But we all kind of got to know the desert pretty well and all the places out there. You'd find mines that you could climb down inside of if you dared, and all kinds of crazy stuff. So he described to this guy named John where to go to find this peyote plant, okay? Or belladonna, I think they called it. Belladonna and peyote, kind of the same thing. I'm trying to remember. It's been a long time. So John went out and he found it. And he was only supposed to eat just a little bit, but he ate a whole bunch. So the next thing you know, he was in the hospital, completely delirious, and the narcotics officers came in. The hospital called him because the guy was just out of his mind on something. And so they came down to find out what the deal was, and he was screaming the name of the guy that told him where to go find this.
I found it.
He's screaming the other guy's name, He never really got in trouble for that, though.
Hey, I was out in the desert. I got hungry. I ate that. I didn't buy it from a dealer. It's natural.
So anyway, the face meaning a person of style and import. So when Steve Marriott was replaced by Rod Stewart and Ron Wood, the band shifted styles and shortened its name accordingly to the Faces. Okay, let's see. That's interesting. Rod Stewart and Ronnie Wood of the Rolling Stones did a lot together way back in the day. They were bandmates for a long time, and the Stones finally tapped Ronnie Wood. And the Stones are great, and I like Rod Stewart too. We saw him. Yeah. Betty had seen him before when she was a girl, younger, and still a girl. But we went to see him at the Arlington Theater in Santa Barbara, and he had his foot in a cast. He'd broken playing soccer. He was hopping all over the stage, trying to dance and stuff with his foot in a big old white cast. And I understand the next couple of concerts he had to do sitting down because he kind of hurt himself trying to do that, But he's coming back. He's going to be back at the Arlington Theater pretty soon. Okay, Elton John, born Reginald Kenneth Dwight in 1947 in Middlesex. Elton John was known as Reggie from the first tentative weekend pub performance through his career-turning meeting with Bernie Taupin, who pretty much wrote all the songs. They collaborated, but Bernie Taupin was the lyricist. Not long after that, however, he began going a new name that honored two former bandmates in the group Bluesology, saxophonist Elton Dean and Long John Baldry. So he took Elton and John from the two former bandmates. Yeah, so that's kind of cool. Foghat. On the eve of completing their first album, the band was still struggling to find the right name. On the eve of completing their first album, Brandywine Track and Hooch had been considered and rejected before Foghat was finally selected. Guitarist Dave Peverett reportedly made up the meaningless word in a childhood game with his brother. Foghat. Meaningless word in a childhood game. I love it.
I love that band. I saw them several times.
Yeah, I think I saw them once in Las Vegas years ago, but I liked them. I think I had an 8-track of theirs, for a while. Haven't heard much from them in a long time.
Well, in '77, I was still in the Navy, and at the time I was I was working on the mess decks, working in the scullery, washing all the dishes and everything. And sometimes we have to work late shifts. Sometimes I'd be up there 3 a.m. working. And I'd get my little boom box, plug it into the speakers there in the mess decks, and I'm listening to Driving the Wheel by Foghat. I listened to that cassette over and over and over during my mess deck times.
Oh, did you? Oh man, I'll tell you. This was another band I really liked and listened to a lot in my youth. Grand Funk Railroad. Oh yeah, I like that band. Let's see. Grand Funk Railroad is a rather wobbly play on words, suggested manager Terry Knight. The Grand Trunk Western Railroad still runs through the band's hometown of Flint, Michigan. They were simply known as Grand Funk for a time, beginning in the early 70s. So it came from that railroad. The Grand Trunk Western Railroad is how they got Grand Funk Railroad. That's interesting.
Michael Nolan's talking about Uriah Heep. Well, I love that band too.
Yeah, I like that band too.
Sweet Lorraine, oh man. And that was, I think I caught part of your show last week when you were mentioning somebody had been electrocuted by guitar. Now I'm not sure who you're talking about, but Gary Thane, the guitar player from Uriah Heep, was electrocuted on stage here in Dallas back in the 70s. I'm not sure if I have to look up to see if it killed him, but Gary eventually died. But I'm not sure if it's from that electrocution or if it's from another one or.
Oh, the singer of the Yardbirds was electrocuted by an instrument.
Okay, yeah. Gary Thane from Uriah Heep.
I think it was Keith Relfs. I think his name. Always wore dark glasses. When he's performing, and Ken Hensley and his lyrics, wonderful. Uriah Heep. Okay, thanks, Michael. Took their name from a character in Charles Dickens' novel David Copperfield, Bill Kay. Well, I got to hand it to you guys. You guys are very knowledgeable. Grateful Dead, not surprisingly, their name came while tripping. Paging through a folklore dictionary, Jerry Garcia stumbled upon the term Grateful Dead.
See, if you notice,
it's actually related to the soul of an unburied dead person expressing karmic gratitude to someone who arranged for their eventual burial. Legions of death metal bands would doubtlessly come to resent the fact that the hippies beat them to this one. That's pretty funny.
If you look, even their name, see, that's another name where they misspelled it. I'm assuming it's misspelled because it's not spelled great like you would spell grateful. No. This got an A in it. So.
Oh my God! What just happened here? You guys hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Somehow I'm okay. Hold on.
And we're still live.
Okay, great. Yeah, I bumped something and I lost my whole picture. I was looking at my screen. Kind of freaked me out. I hate it when that happens. I got to be more careful here. So Humble Pie, Peter Frampton had said his new band was battling around names within hours of Steve Marriott's departure from the Small Faces. Each member put forward a suggestion, and Marriott's Humble Pie, making clear the rejection of the outsized supergroup label was sure to follow, ended up as one that stuck. Drummer Jerry Shirley's rejected name, Evil Cardboard. Well, I'm glad Humble Pie beat out Evil Cardboard. Okay, Iron Butterfly. Now, I love Iron Butterfly. That was a heavy band well before heavy, I think, you know. In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida, The Time of Our Lives. I loved all those songs. I have, I think, 3 copies of the yellow covered album that has ball across the front of it. And I think 2 of In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida. I don't know how I wound up with 3 of the other one, but Iron Butterfly, much in the vein of Led Zeppelin, who released their debut the year after these San Diego psychedelic soldiers, Iron Butterfly arrived at their name out of the desire to combine 2 contrasting elements that would simultaneously represent something heavy and something airborne. Iron Butterfly, heavy and airborne. The fact that it sounded pretty trippy too probably didn't hurt at the time either. No, it didn't hurt at the time. It was pretty trippy. Did you ever get into Iron Butterfly?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You know, well, they're probably about more your age. You know, I'm probably about 4 years younger than you. So anything my older sister listened to, that's what I listened to. So some of the music I listened to was definitely above my age group, you know. But I remember hearing, when they recorded In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida, the lead singer, what is the lead singer's name? Daryl DeLoach.
Yeah.
He was like 16 years old when they recorded that. He was a young kid.
Really? Isn't that like a 9 or 10 minute song? I mean, it's a whole side of an album, that song. It might even be longer than that.
But I always, you know, with that voice, to me, it was hard to picture a 16-year-old singing that. But
yeah, absolutely. I can't even picture that. So Bill Kay, let's see. He brought up Moby Grape and Stone Ponies. Vanilla Fudge. I used to love Vanilla Fudge. That was kind of around the same era as Iron Butterfly, Vanilla Fudge. They were right in there together. Both great bands. Vanilla Fudge is a great band. Yeah, huge band. Didn't that have some oh god, who did the artwork on Sticky Fingers, the album cover? Famous rock artist. What the heck's his name? I don't know why I can't think of it. Anyway, didn't he do that cover on Vanilla Fudge also? Vanilla Fudge had the misfortune of having Led Zeppelin open for them. Can you even imagine? You know, Michael, I think you're as big a Led Zeppelin fan as I am. I love Led Zeppelin. I mean, I've got quite a few. I've got all their studio albums now, and a bunch of other stuff as well. And I actually just bought my first CD in years, and it was the Mothership for a fraction of the cost of what the albums would have cost me. Go ahead, Dan.
I'm reading here that the guy that designed Sticky Fingers artwork is Craig Braun.
Let me think about that for a second.
It says Craig Braun was the go-to designer of innovative album covers in the 1960s and 70s. His work includes the original concept art of the working Andy Warhol zipper.
Andy Warhol was the name I was thinking of.
Okay.
I think he did that cover with the banana on the Vanilla Fudge album too. I think. Anybody have any confirmation on that? Bill Kay, Strawberry Alarm Clock. Yeah, that was a good band too. And Iron Butterfly was great, Michael. I really loved Iron Butterfly. They were a great band. Great band. Jefferson Airplane / Starship. 60s era San Francisco. Quicksilver Messenger Service and Mobley Grape ruled the day. Okay, in 60s era San Francisco, Quicksilver Messenger Service and Mobley Grape ruled the day. And they were both big bands. So it wasn't unusual for a band to call itself something like Blind Lemon, Jefferson Airplane, playing off the name of the bluesman Blind Lemon Jefferson. If anything, shortening it to Jefferson Airplane was an impressive display of concision. When naming a latter revamped version of the band, they changed again to reflect the late Paul Kantner's sci-fi obsession. Okay.
You know, my very first concert ever was Quicksilver Messenger Service and Canned Heat.
Oh,
Very
yeah, I
first
saw
concert
Canned
ever.
Heat. I saw Canned Heat once or twice at the Las Vegas Convention Center. That's a great band. I love Canned Heat. Canned
Yeah.
Heat, James Gang, those were all go-tos there for a while, you know.
Yeah. James Gang. That's when I discovered Joe Walsh. You know, 'cause
Yeah,
love James Gang. Anything Joe Walsh did, I loved.
right. Yeah, Bill Kay just brought up, you know, the Stones cover with the movable zipper,
Yeah.
and I have that. I don't. I'm gonna point at one I have on my wall over here. This is it's a little far off there.
Oh yeah.
Top right is the Sticky Fingers. That's an actual album. Those are like album frames, and then bottom left is Revolver, a Parlophone pressing. And that Sticky Fingers up there, top right, and that is Andy Warhol art. That is the you know, the remake of it. That's not the original, but I do have the original with the moving zipper.
You know, speaking of Andy Warhol, you know, he also designed the Campbell soup label.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
No, that's why I saw that in an art museum in Carmel when I went up there. When I was, you know, went to Clint Eastwood's Mission Ranch for dinner, Betty and I. And then went down to the Hog Breath Inn, and then we started walking our way to the beach, walking down the street, and passing all kinds of art studios. It's a real artsy place. And I remember walking into an art studio, and the Beatles were there, and there was all kinds of rock stuff. And there was a picture of a tomato, Campbell's tomato soup, right?
Yep.
And I didn't get what that was there for. And now I get it.
Yeah,
I
it's
get
Andy Warhol
no,
art.
I did not know that. I didn't look close enough at it. I guess it's just a can of soup.
That guy had so much talent, you know. I mean, he was even into movies. One of the scariest movies I ever saw was Frankenstein in 3D by Andy Warhol. I mean, that was hard. It was horrifying. You know,
Yeah.
I was like 16 at the time. It was actually rated X because of the gore.
Right.
You know.
Exactly. Wow. The band.
Well, I need to get going here in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, no, I think we're pretty much done. Actually, we've been going for a couple of hours. We had a drawing, all kinds of fun stuff going on. So anyway, thanks everybody. I really appreciate all you guys in the chat. You know, Bob and Michael and Bill K. Hi, Bob. Just noticed you here for Levi and everybody. We had a bunch of good people in the chat tonight. A lot of participation. This was a really fun time, and I want to keep doing shows more like this, where we're all interacting. And you know, I did that vinyl unboxing for the longest time, and it just, I knew before the end of the year, and I was saying this, that I didn't think it was I mean, you can only unbox vinyl so many times. I mean, I'll still probably do some because I bought a lot of it. And yeah, Michael, that Revolver, that's a good one. Parlophone pressing. I have 2 Parlophone pressings of Revolver. Not Revolver. One's Revolver, and one is it's not coming to me right now. And then I have the White Album too, which is an original pressing, and a reasonably low number of the White Album, considering they made like 3 million. Okay, it's in the lowest 2% number wise. It's actually got some zeros in front of the number still. So anyway, I was real happy when I found that, with the big poster that looked like it had never been unfolded, and the pictures, individual, 8.5 by 11 photographs of the Beatles. So I've got a decent little Beatles collection, but there's so much out there. It's like I feel like I've just scratched the surface, But anyway, all right, everybody. I want to thank everybody for joining us. This has been a fun show, and I want you to all come back again for another fun show. And Dan, what do you got going right now with your shows and stuff? I think you ought to do a little.
Right now I'm just still working around with my 360 equipment, getting more familiar with it, and
yeah,
I'll come out with more stuff here in the near future.
Okay, good. Yeah, we're looking forward to it. All right. Okay, everybody. Thank you very much. We're going to sign off now. Really appreciate all of you being here.
See you next time.